Welcome to Fighting Back, news talk, current events, and political commentary. Now here's your host of Fighting Back, Ron Ludders.
Audience, this is a great audience. Thank you. Cut the applause. Thank you for being here.
It's a bigger crowd every day.
I know.
It's getting bigger.
We're going to have to get a new studio. You know, I feel like Johnny Carson right now, you know. And all that. At any rate.
And you look like George Burns.
and he's been
Good
dead.
one, Trevor.
And he's been dead for 10 years, I think.
Exactly.
What was he, 100 then? And he's
Probably.
Yeah, he was an old boy.
Yeah.
At any rate, welcome
Racing.
to Fighting Back. Tonight, we're sitting here, and it's about 106 degrees outside, a little warm. And we have the unbelievable Josh Bernstein, and he's in a jacket.
You always got to dress to impress, right?
I mean, you know, I can't believe it. And then we have Mr. Ray Michaels.
Hello, everyone.
And we'd like to thank you all for being here, especially Liz Harris. She's co-streaming this out in the East Valley, and she is the patriot of patriots, Ray.
She is
absolutely
absolutely.
is.
She is a rock star.
Oh, is she a worker? I mean, this woman is doing so much for the audit and all of the getting information and facts together for the audit that's going on here in Arizona. We're going to talk a little bit about that. And then we have Wimpkin. Wimpkin.
Is that how you pronounce it?
Wimpkin. Yeah.
Wimpkin.
It's a little, like Lincoln and Wimpkin.
Uh-huh.
Not even close. But at any rate, we'd like to thank them, Jason Shepard, and we're so thankful that we've discussed this and he's putting it on us on his network. And we'd like to welcome you all here. And for everybody that's watching, please get back to Hub Radio Phoenix. Give us a like, give us a share. We've got a lot of information we're going to be talking about tonight, and you're going to really be amazed at some of the things that are going to happen. And then on the line, we have Trevor, the one and only Trevor Loudon from New Zealand. This is a real treat. Actually, he's not in New Zealand right now.
No, he's in Florida.
He's in Florida. Same thing.
He's in Ron DeSantis country.
That's right.
Yes, you are in Ron DeSantis country. That's cool. Anyway,
Absolutely.
Any rate, we want to talk about something. You just came back from something. Folks, Phoenix, Scottsdale, Arizona is being invaded, and it's being invaded by illegal aliens, and we've been talking about that. You can call them whatever you want. They are people that are in our country that should not be here.
And Ron, this is a border crisis. I mean,
it is.
This all that our resident in chief right now needed to do was nothing. If he did nothing, we would not be in this place. He's done so many things that have affected us, and right here in Arizona. Not only Arizona, we're not talking about Yuma and Casa Grande and Tucson and Sierra Vista. We're talking about right here in Scottsdale, prime residential areas. We have these
Exactly, and Josh, you've been there. It's less than 10 miles from this studio.
9.7 miles away. I was just down there this afternoon. It was on Mountain View and Scottsdale Road, and there was a decent crowd. There was about 125 people or so, maybe 150 people out there.
peaceful protests.
Peaceful protesting. Okay. And so I went out there, and I was wearing my jacket, so it was pretty hot. But I went out there, and I was handing out some business cards, but I was talking to the people. These are dedicated patriots that do not want what's happening. We were standing right in front of the Homewood Suites Hotel, and, basically we were letting them know that how can you be housing these illegal aliens in Scottsdale, of all places? I mean, doing it anywhere, undocumented Democrats, as I like to call them, doing it anywhere is horrible, but to do it in an affluent area that's known for lush golf courses, nice restaurants.
And it's the West's most western town.
The West's most western town, the most livable city at one point. And we literally have a no-bid contract from the fraudulent administration that spent $617 million of your taxpayer money without your knowledge, without your consent. No bid contracts. And again, we always thought that government contracts had to be what? Bid contracts.
Right.
But apparently, when you've gone this far with what has happened in November, I mean, what does it matter anyway, unfortunately?
Josh, this didn't happen during the day. They weren't very proud of bringing these buses in.
Right.
This happened in the dark of night,
That's correct.
undercover, wrapped buses, so really nobody would know what was going on, but this was exposed.
Absolutely. And we just went down there. I had a megaphone. I'm going to put it on my show this week. And I just let them have it, basically. I talked to the crowd, of course, but I let the folks that are standing there guarding this place, which were a lot of police officers. I'm a big supporter of the police. But just like in Nazi Germany, you can't use the excuse, hey, we were just following orders. At some point, you need integrity, and you need, to say, you know what, I cannot, in good conscience, use taxpayer money to support these people when there are homeless veterans on our streets.
Correct.
It's absolutely sick. And
That are citizens.
Especially in Memorial Day weekend here in the United States.
it's horrible.
Unbelievable, because that's when they kind of snuck in.
A lot of people get all twisted, bent out of shape because, some people say, oh, they're undocumented visitors, or they use this flavorful language. But according to federal statute, what are they?
They are illegal aliens. As a matter of fact, that is the federally mandated language. I personally call them undocumented Democrats because that's the whole reason they are here. That's why they're doing this. This is part of the Cloward and Piven strategy to just inundate America with people that would be of voting age, of course,
and destruct the system.
and destroy the system and
they're
bring in
using
socialism.
they're using taxpayer resources such as the police officers, which we respect highly. I mean, that is a job that we honor. But now they're being used for something that they're really not supposed to be doing. They're here to protect and to serve, but they're being told you have to protect people that aren't supposed to be here, but we're paying for it.
Exactly. And the group behind it, by the way, is known as endeavors.org. It is a far left extremist radical group that pretends, and I'll use that word, pretends to be for veterans and veterans' rights. Well, if it was for veterans and veteran rights, then they wouldn't be spending all their resources and money and capital on illegal aliens. So obviously they can't be for that. But who's behind it? Who's funding it? The Bob Woodruff Foundation, the Hispanic Federation, Open Borders Organization, the Salvation Army, the United Way, the cities of Houston, Dallas, and San Antonio. These are actually folks that have come in from Texas that are doing this. This isn't even Arizona. These are Endeavors and all that. All these companies are from Texas. We saw a Soloco van for food and things like that. That's from Texas, from San Antonio. So the money's coming in from out of state, too.
And Trevor, feel free
Do you
to
want to hear
jump in
something
on
really
this.
scary about this, guys?
Yes.
Please do.
About what is to come.
I don't know. Are we ready for that?
Well, you should be, because do a little bit of math here, guys. Venezuela was once the richest country in Latin America.
Yes.
At 30 million people. Now it's that you can't buy toilet paper, and they've got 24 million people because 6 million people have left the country. 20% of the population have either gone to the United States, Europe, or are living in refugee camps in Brazil and Colombia. Now, Mexico now has a communist president. AMLO is a communist, and he has midterm elections this year. I am told by sources in his party that when he wins those elections, he is going to go full on Venezuela in Mexico. He is going to trash the Mexican economy like you cannot believe. So Mexico has 130 million people right now. Where are 20% of them going to go when the economy crashes?
The Arizona border.
That's right. And the doors are open now. They've opened the doors and they've taken away our resources to protect those borders.
So we're seeing 1 million a year right now. We're going to see 10 million in the next couple of years.
Wow.
20 million. That is the plan. The Mexicans are working with the Chinese. This whole border crisis is organized by the communists.
Absolutely.
The Chinese are abetting it. This is the American communists, the Liberation Road and other groups, the people behind Black Lives Matter. They say that Mexico is going to be the leading force in the American Communist Revolution. And by that they mean that by collapsing the Mexican economy, they're going to flood America with tens of millions of people and completely sink the economy here and completely destabilize the country in preparation for revolution. That's what's coming. We've only seen the tip of the iceberg. And so every red county in Arizona and Texas and every red county in New Mexico and California better start getting organized to protect the borders. They have a right to do it. This is not an immigration issue. This is a public safety
It's a national
and
security
military issue.
Now,
And
Trevor-
they better start getting organized.
Trevor, we had your picture up here with your book. Is it Enemy Within?
The
Can you bring
Enemy
that
Within.
back? Yeah, can you bring that?
One of my books is I've got a couple of books, Enemies Within. My latest book is White House Reds.
All right, and you talk about this in some of your books as well?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh.
And where can they pick up your books, Trevor?
Well, you can just go to my website. You can get them on Amazon, but who would want to support them? Go to my website, trevorloudon.com, and you can buy them directly from me. Plus, you can get autographed copies when you buy them directly from me.
Now,
And,
is it actually your autograph?
It is actually my autograph. I learned to read and write when I was 12, and I've been doing it consistently ever since.
Well, good for
I
you.
can write a very good autograph.
We've heard wonderful things about the New Zealand education system.
It's amazing that someone
It's-
comes here from New Zealand and is more American than most Americans, and
Than
then
at least 80
actually does
million.
the research and says, "Hey, here's what's going on in your country. Here's the communist infiltration that is about to take place." God bless you, Trevor, for that. And one more thing that I'm going to add that you didn't add is, folks, we see a lot about Wikipedia, right? And Wikipedia is out there, and we know that Wikipedia is left-leaning. If you look at my Wikipedia site, you'll see what I'm talking about. But there's another Wikipedia site, and it's called KeyWiki, KeyWiki, and this literally is Trevor's Wikipedia site. So anything that you need to know about any subject matter, about any topic, he gives you the truth on that. So, folks, check it out. It's called KeyWiki. And again, there's no plug for me other than the fact that we're very good friends, and I love what he's doing.
Now, Trevor.
Well, thanks, Josh. Well, KeyWiki has got nearly 140,000 profiles of American communists, socialists, democratic
It's
politicians. From Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, who are both communists, all the way down to your street-level anarchists and radicals,
Wow.
and including a lot of your local politicians there in Arizona. So, yeah, thanks for the shout-out on that, Josh.
So, Trevor, now I know that back in the 1980s, 1990s, they were very, very strict in New Zealand about who could come in, who could live there, and you had to have something to bring to the community before they would actually let you live there. I had one friend who was a doctor. He came down there, lived there with his family, then came back to the U.S. You're very knowledgeable with regard to immigration. Are you concerned now what's happening here in the U.S.?
Well, immigration is the number one tool for destroying the United States. And not immigration, illegal immigration and refugee resettlement. Because America for a long time, when it was a very free country with little welfare, you got the best the world had to offer. You got the bravest people, the people who are willing to risk everything to go to a new country and start a new life. You got the best of Europe. You got the best of all over the world. And now you're getting the people who are starving and can't make it in their own country.
Yep.
And are now just coming there for your welfare and your handouts. It's a totally different class of people. And, the left tries to blur the distinction between legal immigrants and illegal aliens. The difference is comparable to the difference between a guest in your house and a burglar. A guest comes through the front door with a bottle of wine and a bowl of pasta. A
Exactly.
burglar comes through the back door with a crowbar and wreaks havoc.
Right.
They are not the same, and illegal aliens are not the same as legal immigrants and should not be treated the same way.
Well, that's why I think President Trump had the merit-based system. I mean, that seems the most
Yeah.
fair. And, I like the sponsorship too. If somebody wants to come in, they cannot come into our country and immediately be a burden on the country.
Exactly.
They have to come in.
Right.
If somebody
you
needs somebody
cannot-
to come in, they need to support that person until they can stand on their own.
And Ray, you cannot
Yeah.
go even to Mexico. You cannot go to Mexico. You cannot work in Mexico.
No, it's a
unless
felony.
Unless you get a work permit. You cannot move to Mexico unless as a permanent resident.
I think it's
without-
commonplace all over the world that
Right.
that's the way that it is.
Yeah.
Right. And we're-
America's the only country it's considered the easy lay of immigration. It's a crude term, but America is considered the just the easy country. They'll let you in regardless if you have a sob story or whatever. And look, when I came to America, I had to have sponsorship. I had a guy out in California, a good friend of mine, who had I gone on welfare, he would have had to pay the authorities to cover my welfare.
And rightly
Of course,
so.
of course, I never did, but he was on the hook for it
That's
if
right.
I chose to do that. Well, every taxpayer is on the hook for the illegal aliens that are coming across now. It's not a voluntary thing. You are put on the hook by your communist government.
Think about this. If you're an illegal alien in Mexico, it's a felony. If you're found to be an illegal alien in Mexico, it's a felony and possibly 2 years in jail. If you do it for a second time, it's 10 years hard labor. If you're an illegal alien in the United States of America, I don't know, you get free health care, you get free
Stay
college.
at the hotel.
You
A
get
hotel
to stay
in
at
Scottsdale.
a gorgeous hotel in Scottsdale, Arizona. I mean, it's so, bass backwards is the best way to say it.
But you're 100% right, Josh. This is all about increasing the pool of Democrats. I've got on my movie Enemies Within, I've got Alicio Medina. By Obama's immigration advisor, a Marxist, a member of Democratic Socialists of America, talking publicly how legalizing 11 million undocumented workers, as he called them, and it's actually more like 20 million.
It's like 44 million.
Well,
by now.
whatever it is, it's way more than they tell you. And he was saying, basically, he openly said to this meeting, this will give us at least 8 million more Democratic Party voters. This will give us a complete control of America well into the foreseeable future. In other words, a one-party state. The only reason this is happening is so the Democrats can have a one-party state and impose socialism on America. If the illegal immigrants coming across the border, the illegal aliens, voted 80% Republican, the Democrats would have the biggest wall on the border you've ever seen.
They'd be down
They'd
there
have
with
the National
bazookas.
Guard of every state. They'd probably put nuclear weapons on the border.
Exactly.
They'd be that worried about it.
Let me.
I joke that if you want to stop illegal immigration, you just get the local Republican Party to go down to the Rio Grande and register every illegal coming across as a Republican. That would end it.
Let me change the subject just a little bit because there's Scottsdale has been a changing community as well. It used to be a very, very, very red community, very Republican. And this last election, they elected a guy by the name of David Garcia, who's a Democrat, by the way. And
Is he the guy that stood for governor?
No.
Okay.
No, different one. And he made a statement yesterday, and see if you gentlemen can figure this out. He says, I just want to remind you all that everyone was an immigrant at one time. Does anybody see anything wrong with that statement?
I see everything wrong with that statement.
I've never been an immigrant into the United States. Trevor, you have. Josh,
Yeah.
how about you?
Nope. I'm
But
born
I-
and
but
raised here.
But even if you said everybody is descended from immigrants.
He didn't say that.
I know, but even if he'd said that, which is a bit more accurate, the fact is illegal aliens are not immigrants.
Right.
This is a distinction we must draw. They are criminals.
And I go one step further. When my ancestors, some of them, came to the United States, we weren't the United States. We were New Britain. And they came from Britain to New Britain, and they weren't immigrants. They came to a country that was owned by the British. So they were not immigrants. They were British citizens that came to a British territory. So they weren't immigrants at all. George Washington was a Brit.
Yeah. Well, Josh Bernstein, uncensored.com. Josh, we love to have you here every week. We are a sovereign state here in Arizona.
We are.
Right? And the federal government does some things, opens up our borders, but we have people at the top that can do something about this. Trevor, you know about this as well. But for some reason, some of our leaders are not doing things, and it's almost as though they're part of the crimes that are going on. Can you share a little bit about that, Josh?
Well, obviously, Doug Ducey, the governor, he could have put the National Guard down on the border to actually do the job instead of changing diapers.
One thing that I want to point out, Doug Ducey is a Republican.
Right. In name only, of course. But he could have done the right thing. He didn't. He put, $250 or something like that, some ridiculous amount. And they're there to, make sure your mask is over your nose, make sure that your baby is being burped, make sure that, the diapers are there.
Candy, right?
Right, exactly.
For a photo op.
So if he really cared about the citizens of Arizona, he'd put 15 to 20,000 down there, and they'd be armed. And they would literally stop any invasion that is taking place.
Which it is.
But of course,
it's an invasion.
Doug Ducey is a criminal, as well as the fact that his entire family are criminals. Okay, he was born and bred in criminality in Ohio. His grandfather was into racketeering, was into loan sharking. His uncle escaped the law, basically went to Antigua and became a big kingpin until he was finally busted, thrown in jail. He's got people in his family that have done armed robbery. He's dirty. And the reason that I'm bashing his family is because it goes to intent. And the intent is that he is vulnerable to taking bribes, to taking kickbacks, to taking payoffs. We'll never forget the time that Hail to the Chief was playing as President Trump was calling him to tell him not to certify fraudulent results, and he took his phone out of his jacket. He said, "Oh, look, it's President Trump. Oh, let's just turn that off and let's sign these fake fraudulent documents." So Doug Ducey is a terrible governor. He needs to go. Thankfully, he's term limited. And now we find out that the bought and paid for Secretary of State from George Soros, Katie Hobbs, wants to replace him. Well, I got news for you, Katie. It ain't going to happen. And you can say what you want about it being a, quote, cakewalk, as you said on Facebook. We are going to do everything in our powers to make sure that you are nowhere near the governorship in the state of Arizona. So help us God.
Isn't this the same Katie Hobbs that said Trump supporters were neo-Nazis?
This is the same one. Yeah. She is bought and paid for by George Soros. George Soros is your papa.
So it mind boggles me, and I know a lot of our listening audience knows this, but our governor, Doug Ducey, also holds another position, a pretty high position within the Republican governors. Can you go over that,
I believe he's
Josh?
the chairman right,
of
the National Governors Association.
Out of all of the Republican governors, all of them, they chose him to be the chair.
Yeah, an ice cream salesman.
What's going on with that?
Unbelievable. Look what they did to Mike Lindell. I mean, Mike Lindell was going to confront Brian Kemp, was going to confront Doug Ducey. I have a different name for him on my show, but I'll keep it clean here. And they threw him out. They wouldn't even let him talk. They wouldn't even let him have his freedom of speech to contest what they were going to be saying, because obviously he was going to talk about the election. But of course, when you know that you've done something illegal and fraudulent and wrong, well, you certainly don't want to answer any questions about it now, do you, Doug?
And who is Mike Lindell, so everybody is sure to know?
Mike Lindell, the MyPillow CEO, had a chance to interview him about 3 weeks ago. Great guy.
Yeah.
And he's fighting the good fight along with many others out there for election integrity.
All right, now we were talking about our governor here in the state of Arizona. We're having America's audit happening right now,
Yep.
and the legislature, the Republican-led legislature, is working very, very hard to pass some bills to make sure that they get in. Now, I know that our governor is supporting all of those bills, right? Because
Oh,
we want to make
certainly.
sure that those are going to be happening. Tell us what's
Yeah.
going on with that.
Yeah, well, our governor decided to veto 22 pieces of legislation, including 2. One was for election integrity, which would have gotten rid of massive mail-in ballots. In other words, sending in mail-in ballots without being
Requested.
solicited. Requested. That was one. And the other one was on critical race theory. So it's unbelievable that here we are. We've got the Arizona State Legislature working their tails off to bring election integrity bills, and he goes, no, I'm just going to veto them. And then he uses some sad excuse about the budget. You know what you do? You cut left-wing programs, you cut spending, you find the money that way, you make sure that these bills are all passed, and then you worry about the money later, and you cut left-wing programs to fill in the gaps. But you don't take away the hard-earned work of the Arizona legislature that is doing whatever they can to pass election integrity bills. Shame on Doug Ducey.
Here was one more bill that the governor vetoed, and I thought this was a doggone good one. This was a bill where the Attorney General of the state of Arizona would review the constitutionality of executive orders that were made by the President of the United States. What a concept that is.
Wow.
Because, I mean, let's face it, these people in Washington, D.C., I don't think have even taken a rudimentary class in the Constitution of the United States. They keep, I mean, it's pretty obvious. We did a program, Ray, last week, as you know, talking about the people that were being held on the January 6th issues of the armed insurrection. The only one that were armed in that insurrection were the Capitol Police. And it wasn't the people that were there to support President Trump. The bottom line is these people, the Sixth and the Eighth Amendments are being violated. The Sixth Amendment says a speedy and fair trial,
Due process.
and the Eighth Amendment says unusual punishment. Many of these people are being put in solitary confinement, and they haven't been found guilty of anything.
Trevor, you're in a state right now where you just have a rock star for a governor, and he's very supportive, and he's going up against big tech, he's going up against mask mandates, and you know I'm just a firm believer. You know, the 17th Amendment I think needs to be repealed. I've talked to many people about this because nobody is protecting states' sovereignty right now. Nobody is there in D.C. in the swamp who's protecting the states. Now, you're in a state that's doing a lot of things. When you hear things about our governor and then your governor, what are you thinking?
Yeah, well, look, we're so grateful for Ron DeSantis, and look, I got to confess though, I have a pretty tight relationship with DeSantis because my wife's aunt used to date Ron DeSantis's uncle. So we're practically family. But look, he is a rock star governor. He is fighting on every step of the way. Whereas in Arizona, it's the opposite. You know, your governor is a menace, and your legislature is great. So what I see is the only way forward. The only thing that's going to stop the communization of this country, and we're on the verge of it, is that the red states stand together. The red states reject any orders from the federal government
Amen.
that are unconstitutional.
Yep.
You know, they got to band together and say, because there's 30 states still controlled by Republican legislatures, and they all got to get together and say, we will not allow you to take away our voting rights. You will not come for our guns. You will not come for our freedom of speech. You will not come for our freedom of religion. You know, the 10th Amendment tells us that the federal government serves at the pleasure of the states, not the other way around. So the way out of this mess is the 10th Amendment and the First Amendment. Freedom of speech and state sovereignty, so that
Amen.
we can basically hold off the federal government and stop them communizing the country before 2022, so we have some chance of fighting back then. Because if we don't do that, there will be no meaningful 2022 and certainly no 2024.
Well, let's get some state representation back into D.C. I say repeal 17th Amendment, have them selected by the state legislatures.
Absolutely.
And that needs to take place as soon as possible.
Yeah, well, the 17th Amendment was direct election of senators,
Right.
and previously it was designed by the founding fathers that the Congress was the people's house.
Yes.
The people elected their representatives. The
Right.
Senate was the state's house.
Right.
They would be chosen by the legislature of the state, and so that separation of powers really enforced the view. Every state was jealous of its powers, and they would elect senators to protect those powers. Now, with a direct election of senators, as we have now, it's basically diluted the power of the states and increased the power of the federal government and the political parties.
And
So
the
absolutely, I would agree
Yeah.
that it has to go.
And it's all partisanship now, right? You got one side, you got the other side, and they're constantly fighting back and forth. Nothing's getting done, and they wave their hands up and say,
It's really one
know
party
what?
in Washington,
"Oh,
unfortunately.
it's terrible." All right, we're taking a break.
We're taking a break.
Fantastic.
Listen, we'll be right back, but when we get back, we're going to talk a little bit about the Arizona Senate audit. Where is it at? What's happening? And how is it going to affect you? So don't go away. Stand by. This is Hub Radio. We'll see you on the other side.